All right, I'm going to demonstrate a headstand straddle twist. And the way I'm going to do this is with Baddha Shasana, which is the bound headstand. Fingers interlaced, palms on the back of the head, elbows pulled in, and this allows for you to use the strength of your arms to take some of the weight off your head. So I'm going to set this up, palms open, and I'm cupping the back of my head, bringing the elbows in closer than I need to because they will spread apart once I start to take weight. And then to walk this forward, you can come into the headstand however you like. I'm just going to lift to a straddle right away. And bring this up so my legs are more or less horizontal. And then I'm going to work the twist from here. And what you want to pay attention to when you're doing this kind of thing is where things are actually going, where your hips have to shift in space so you can keep your balance. Now with this, I'm going to keep pressing my hands and be sure my arms are active the whole time. And so I'm just going to twist from the waist. So I'm letting my legs just twist as far as I can go. And then I'll take it back the other way. It's hard to talk while you're doing this, but I'll do the best I can. And it's a good exercise for just feeling out how your balance shifts. I recommend taking this slow so you don't lose your bearing and fall down. I can feel like I'm taking this a little bit deeper as I go. I'm going to give it one more round. So I'm reaching out through the toes, trying to keep the legs as straight as possible. And if you work the twist deep, it's going to be hard to breathe. And then back to the original straddle, I'll bring everything down. And that is a straddle twist from a headstand. All right, straddle twist from a forearm stand. This is going to be a little bit different than other inversions when you come upside down. When you're on your forearms, there's an initial shift. I'm going to take this up into a straddle initially as I jump up. It's possible to press this. I'm not very good with the press. I'm not going to mess around with that too much. If that is really accessible to you, be my guest. And then I'll take this up. And what happens when you're in a forearm stand is your shoulders come forward toward your hands initially, and then you have to press into the hands to bring the shoulders back over your elbows more or less. And that gives you basically the full engagement across the upper back and keeps the shape much more solid and helps you with your balance. Now, two ways to do this with the forearms. You can have the palms down with the forearms parallel. I always do this with my palms together here. And keep in mind, your arm hangs at your side with the palms facing in. This is a bit more of the natural rotation of your arms. And let's change this from one person to the next. I find it much easier to keep the arm position under control if I just bring my hands together. And you can just press the palms, interlace the fingers, whatever you like. If it serves you best to do this, that's fine. But just be sure that your elbows aren't flaring out to the sides, because once you lose control of your elbows, you're going to come down. You want to keep basically a triangular base of pressure if you've got the hands together. So you press into the hands and press into the elbows. If you're keeping the forearms parallel, it's a bit harder to control, but if you're able to do that version easily or without too much trouble, feel free. And then as I come up, I'm going to hold a bit of an arch through my spine, which is going to be a little bit more necessary than with a handstand or a headstand. And I got to keep my hips in place as I twist in the straddle and bring my legs back and forth. So I'll start from here. As I said, I'm going to bring my palms together. I'm starting with the elbows closer than I probably need them to be, because they will shift apart once I actually bring this up. And then walking this in, and I am not the most flexible person, so this isn't really I'm not the best example of coming into this, but I'm just going to jump this up to a straddle right away. And so I'll take a moment just to press into my hands so that my shoulders can come out over my elbows. And I'm going to keep my base of support like this in the upper body, from the upper back down to my bent arms. And then from here, I'm going to keep my feet as wide as I can from each other. And just work the straddle into a twist and take this as deep as possible. And then bring it back through and past the original straddle. And keep pushing into the hands and take it to the other side. And there's definitely a bit of shifting here. So I recommend, if you're doing this, to take this slow. So you be sure you're pressing your hands, and there's going to be some shifting around. And you don't want to shift so much Once you lose your balance and you got to come down quick. I'm almost lost it there. There we go. I'll give this one more round. Over the other side one more time. And I'll come back to the straddle. This will probably be a little bit clunky, but I'll take it down. All right, and that's working a straddle twist in a forearm stand. And this is definitely going to look much different depending on the specifics of your body. If you're much more limber in the low back, with a lot of flexibility in your legs where you can come out to a full 180-degree straddle split, it's probably going to look a lot prettier. But the basics are pretty much the same. You still have to press in your hands. You have to stay braced and keep all the tension under control across your upper back. And tune into where you are as you're balancing so you can pivot from the waist and move your hips back and forth as your legs are reaching from one side to the next. All right, what I'm going to demonstrate here is a straddle twist and a handstand. So basically just coming up so I have a full straddle, or as full as I can get, with my legs out to the sides, trying to keep the legs straight, and then twisting from the waist to pivot the hips back and forth and reach out through the feet. Now, when you come into this, keep in mind, you got to keep your base of support under control. So you're pressing your hands, straight arms, push from the shoulders, and try to keep all that activation and just take things not super slow, but relatively smoothly as you go so you don't completely lose your balance. Now I'm going to start this out with a straddle. I'll just hop this up, and then we'll see how this goes. I might have to come down and do this a couple of times. So my hands are shoulder width. I'm going to start with the feet together and then come up with the feet out wide. All right, so from here, I'm just going to keep pressing from the shoulders down into the palms, and then just start to move from the waist and take it bit by bit so I don't completely lose my balance, but taking it into that deep twist. Takes a bit of concentration if you're going for multiple rounds. I'll give it one last round. Ooh, I'm getting a little unstable. Let's see if I can keep it. One more time. Ooh, I'm going to lose. Oh, no, I got it. To the other side. There we go. Back to the straddle. And then down. And it's a pretty long hold when you're on your hands. And I just took that through 3 rounds just to work the twist as best I can. And it's a good exercise, really, to train the sense of your body in space, and to gain more time on your hands. Keep that activation from the shoulders down to the palms. Anyway, I hope this helps.